Carolyn Davidson designed an empire-defining logo, probably one of the most recognizable logos that has ever existed and probably will ever exist.
Carolyn, thank you. It's good to see you again. Who, as everyone here knows, invented the Nike swoosh and got paid the outrageous sum of $35 for it.
Aaron Draplin has proved that you could still be very down-to-earth in a field that is known to get a bit pretentious.
Because it's cool making money, but I throw away so many hours helping people. Because I think we could do a little more of that, right?
Saul Bass is somebody that makes people want to stay and actually watch the credits.
The audience involvement with a film should really begin with the very first frame.
And David Carson is somebody that has broken a system that has been and still is taught to this day.
I think for whatever reasons, I have a way of looking at things that worked when I discovered that I liked graphic design and was passionate about it.
But none of them are my favorite designer. I don't have a favorite designer. I'm inspired by everybody, and specifically everybody. I'm inspired by everybody I just named, but no more than I'm inspired by, movies, art, architecture, video games, furniture, window displays, scarves, and most importantly, people. And I realized over the course of my few years in perspective of things being a designer that you should look for inspiration everywhere if you want to be a highly proficient designer. Think about it. Who do you design for? You don't design for yourself. You design for everybody else. So if you see something that is in a mall, on a store, anything like that, it was passable enough to be on that store. It doesn't mean that it has to be good just because it's now on a storefront. It could still be absolutely terrible. But when you are looking for the good and the bad, you try to determine based off of the good why the bad is the bad, if that makes sense. One of the biggest things that faces designers is burnout. And I believe burnout comes from the lack of inspiration needed to fuel motivation. You could probably fight through it. And I mean, you probably already are. I do all the time. But you find that a lot of your work could just end up being uninspired or just boring or just a slog to get through, to open this computer. It almost becomes like a negative magnet, keeping you away from doing it. And anytime you think about designing, drawing, doing whatever you want to do, making music, stuff like that, it becomes the most difficult, the most heavy, and the most kind of revolting thing that you could do. And I see a lot of people say online, as I was researching this, a lot of negative comments that say if you were actually passionate about what you do, you wouldn't feel burnout by these things. And that's not true. That's total BS, because passion alone doesn't carry you through anything. I know some people that passionately make music and they're terrible at doing it. I know some people that are passionately designers and are terrible at doing it. And you can be passionate till you turn purple. You will not be good at it unless you dedicate yourself and you are inspired to do so. Passion, like I said, doesn't carry you. It's kind of like the wheels. And then the inspiration, I think, is more of the fuel, or the motivation is more like the fuel. And it's much more motivation than just motivation to design. You need motivation to learn, to feel, to live your life, to soak in the surroundings of where a successful advertisement of yours would actually live if you had the opportunity to do one. I combat burnout. For example, I like to go to Barnes & Noble. I like to see all the new book covers that are being displayed. I like to go to the mall and go to the floor with all the luxury stores and look at the window displays for the new season. I like to go to the grocery store even to look at the packaging for the products that I may not have noticed, and some things I just don't eat. I think Fishwife, I don't eat any of that stuff. I don't eat anchovies. I don't eat really fish, but their packaging is 10 out of 10. It is incredible. Basically, anywhere where I could be surrounded by design and people is where I try to seek out that inspiration. And it doesn't just have to be somewhere indoors. It could be outdoors too, of course. But you want to see good design, of course, but you also need to see bad design to understand what makes the good design good. So You could be walking down the street and then you have a bunch of different stores, restaurants, nail salon, whatever, and you stop and you see a logo. And like, let's say it's for the nail salon. It has a small icon of someone with their nails, like doing the emoji. And then it also has a logo of hair, a hair dryer, a shampoo bottle, money or whatever. It's a lot going on. And if that was all you saw, you would think that's good. But if good logos somehow were the only thing that you saw, you wouldn't know what's really bad and you wouldn't know what's really good, because if everything's good, nothing's good, I guess. I also need to see bad advertising. I need to see bad logos, bad type, bad colors. And it's the bad design that you notice because, like, in everyday life, it's the bad design you notice because it hurts. It's like I was saying, like with Burnout, you're kind of like revolted. It's like this revolting feeling that especially I feel when I see bad design, like bad design. Good design, or just like okay design, it's not something you really notice. And then like, yeah, I got the job done because I didn't look at this menu and I like squinted or zoomed in, or I saw like your Canva watermark printed on the menu rather. And good design, it kind of has a similar relationship to like bad design in just like the strength of the impact. But good design, it makes me wish I had my sketchbook. It makes me wish I had my laptop or just something to where I can just get an idea out if it inspires me in the moment. And that's what you should be doing. You should try to be as present as possible. And I know that it's really easy, and I still do this at times too, to just cycle through like Pinterest, Dribbble, Instagram, and like look for inspiration that way. But I mean, it's not real. I mean, it's real because it exists and somebody designed it, but it's not in place of your life, and like the canvas around it is just more designs, and that's not like a natural way that any of this stuff would be shown, I guess. I mean, in some ways, yeah, maybe, because like if you're doing stuff for social media, but if you're trying to think of it in like the bigger picture, and like if this is like on a larger scale or for a store or something, I like seeing my advertising with a building behind it and like a car driving past it, or a bird behind it in your ear, or just like the sound of life. You know, it's like being played in the wrong way. You know, if you like watch like an Avatar movie on your phone, it's sort of like that relationship. Is something's just like not right about it. And I feel like when it's coming to looking for inspiration, you need all the aspects of life to help inspire you. It could be a song that's playing while you look at this sign, while a certain time of day is going on. And that culmination of things is what leads to an idea. We don't know for certain how ideas, I guess, get formed or come about exactly, or how inspiration is like picked out of the air. It isn't gonna efficiently come from sitting on your phone, refreshing, looking up a new word. Okay, now let's look up product design. And then you can see those things. You'll get some ideas, and you can get, I guess, some design stuff to like pick up and like remix if that's what you want to do. But to come up with something new, like design has been around for over like 17,000 years, or however long those like cave paintings were found to be old. But even all the designers I mentioned in the beginning, none of these people were in the digital era, at least didn't start in the digital era. For those that are now, they are on computers, of course, but all of them have done design the old-fashioned way, where it comes to good pencil to paper, you know? So just try to be present as much as you can. And you can be inspired by literally everything. I've been inspired by people's outfits for color palettes. I've been inspired by scarves for brand patterns. So keep a notebook, one that could like absolutely take a beating because you want to keep this everywhere with you. You ideally want to just always have it with you. And, if it rips, anything like that, the paper comes out and it could go somewhere else. So even if it's not the most durable material, just keep something small with you. And then also just have, if anything, a pen to either just sketch, because you should always be, in my opinion, sketching in pencil, but writing down in pen. You never want to kind of like erase and go back on like your thoughts or ideas. I think you should just always like keep adding to them. As controversial as he is, the Yeezus album, he's quoted with saying that it's inspired by
this lamp. and it was dumb expensive. It was like $110,000. And it was very inspiring to me, inspired the Yeezus album.
The Corbusier, lamp. This is a genre-defining, genre-bending, instant classic album inspired by a lamp. And it's not to say that, like, oh yes, this lamp whispered in his ear how to make the beats, who to get on these songs. No, it's the emotional kind of like train of thought that comes from looking at it and all of the thoughts and emotions that it elicits. So when you are trying to sit and think, and thinking has been quite the lost art, but sit and think and go through the emotions of, like, when you look at something and it inspires you, even if it's something that is like, you can't really tell exactly why it inspires you, sit and think about it. Try to figure it out. You can figure it out. Just don't type into ChatGPT, like, why is this lamp inspiring? And then you pick, like, the adjectives. Absolutely. Here's, and then that's your reasoning for stuff. Use your brain, sit, think, and try to figure out why it makes it important to you, because that unique perspective is what people are paying you for. You don't get paid to be like, I just designed it because it looked cool. That's something, like, even in design school, is like a mortal sin and you have to try to get over. And nobody will buy into that in the workplace, or anybody that's like even giving you $1 for your designs. We're paid to strategize. We're paid to give meaning to these ideas and find out what the meaning is and make that connection for the clients, or just for our job, or for our professors. After all of that, it's to say basically to build a certain discipline when it comes to gaining inspiration, looking for inspiration, and just designing in general. Before you even put pen tool to artboard, you should have at least 50 thumbnail sketches if you're doing a logo. Have like 10 to 15 different layout sketches if you're laying out a page. Thinking does not happen on the computer. Think about opening your computer as the execution stage. There's nothing that you can do on this computer that leads to good design thinking that you cannot do in the analog, tangible world. If you are just going to be solely output driven, you are making yourself replaceable. So do whatever you can to double down on what makes you unique. And to do so, it requires learning. I feel like today we're seeing a lot of like anti-college, don't need this, don't need that. I'm not going to tell you what to do. But if you are not getting a formal education, we live in an age where you can see the greatest minds in the world. And this is also, if you have a formal education, keep learning. This is not to say like, as a new designer, you need to learn how to get better. As a designer that is working and has been building a career for themselves, you need to keep learning as well. And you know, we have access to so much knowledge, to some of the greatest minds in design to this day are just so accessible online to us. They're so accessible over YouTube. They're so accessible over DMs. You could DM some of them. They're designers. They're not that famous. And then you could have a conversation with them potentially over LinkedIn. All these people have LinkedIns. You can have conversations. You can make connections with people that you think are so much further out than you think that they might be. One of the coolest stories is literally Salehi talks about how
I proposed that opportunity, just shooting my shot. I'm like the image of unemployment in my underwear, eating cereal, like on my couch and shit. And 3 days later, Donatella replied to me, Donatella Versace.
He got a huge job just by a DM over LinkedIn. And this isn't, you know, saying you have to just cold email everybody or cold message everybody on LinkedIn. But make yourself as accessible as they're making themselves. And they're much closer than you think that they are. And YouTube University is real. Like, if you do not plan on attending design school, but you're still interested in design, or you're in design school, or you're out of design school, this applies to everybody. YouTube University has taught me multiple programs before I got to college. So that way I was proficient in certain programs, and I moved into the design program. I didn't start in the design program. I started in architecture. And after a few years in the architecture program, I moved into graphic design, and I already knew all the programs. I taught myself when I was in high school, and I refreshed myself the summer before I started in the design program. So you can be proficient in literally anything if you have access to the internet and a computer that can actually just run the program. For some, even if you can't afford or just have those Adobe programs, there are plenty of alternatives, and it's not like Adobe's, doing something completely different with their programs. A lot of this knowledge can apply. I worked a job once that instead of Illustrator, we used Corel, and then Corel, I didn't like this program, but a lot of the knowledge that I had from Illustrator just immediately applied. When I was applying for the job, they were like, how proficient are you in Corel? I told them I'm highly proficient in Corel. I was not. But I just sat and I went on YouTube. I downloaded the free trial of the program for 3 days, and then I just learned the ins and outs. It took me probably like 4 or 5 hours to be completely proficient, because if you're going from one program to another, they all work sort of the same because they're all trying to compete with one another. So like go on YouTube, watch, replicate, and then just make something eventually that is authentically you. And that just comes from repetition and learning. There's only one of you. So understand that you have things about you that make you unique that nobody else has. So play to those things that make you different, but then also understand your disadvantages and try to educate yourself out of being in that disadvantage when it comes to a soft skill within your work. So if you're terrible at public speaking or just giving presentations, fix it. If you are never really sure of yourself and you always feel like an imposter, fix it, please. It's so easy to fix. It's difficult to try to, get yourself to the point to where you should fix it. But once you know that you have something that you should work on, it's fairly simple. There's millions of videos online. There's millions of forums of people talking about it. And people have these like little tricks that they use on their brain to be like, okay, this is what I do, and this is what I tell myself. I was just looking up something for imposter syndrome. I've been going through like different conversations and networking stuff, and I need help with that stuff, There's no one way to become proficient in anything. You can become very proficient at a very high-end, prestigious design school. You could become very proficient at a local county college. You could become proficient behind your computer, in your house, or on your phone, on the bus, anywhere. As long as you have access to the internet or some sort of educational piece or information or book or newsletter or journal, something like that, you are a lot closer to becoming an amazing designer than you are from further away. It's going to take you a long time. It'll take you for sure a long time, but just knowing and purposefully going down that path is something, it's a lot more than what a lot of people are doing. The easiest way to put it. And I mentioned imposter syndrome. To go a little more in depth, this will hit you. You are not safe from it. I feel like you might have to have some incredibly rare form of confidence for this to be completely avoidable. So I'll speak to what I think is the majority of people who are vulnerable to eventually feeling or have felt the imposter syndrome. This is very difficult to get over. So what I learned is the best thing to do is to learn to exist within it. Try to rethink of your nerves as excitement. So taking something that has a negative connotation to a positive connotation, and it's literally the same feeling that you get in like the pit of your stomach, or just like the tingly feeling in your hands, or you start sweating, whatever you react to excitement or nerves by, you can apply that to excitement. And that just requires a reshaping of your thought process, but use it as a reason to put yourself out there. There's, a million reasons to not put yourself out there, but nobody has become an incredible or notable designer, or just even a good designer, by keeping their work to themselves. Nothing is, gonna be amazing if it's still within your laptop. And if you're truly feeling stuck, just also think of it this way: be the best imposter that you can be. If it really just takes you being like, okay, well, I don't feel like I deserve this, I feel like I'm not like really this person, then just like screw it, just do it. Like pretend like, all right, I'm gonna pretend like I'm the most extroverted version of myself possible, and I'm gonna go out there and pretend that I'm somebody who's comfortable doing this. eventually you may find that you learn that, hey, this is like actually me that's doing these things. And people are a lot more complicated than just like extroverted, introverted. It's, you know, like the spectrum of where you fall in that. And you are not the person that gets to determine if you are actually good at your job. You know, you could be working at a company and you could be having a tough conversation with HR and they could be like, okay, Antonio, we find that you are not proficient at this job. You could argue them up and down. You're going to look like the crazy person and you're going to get dragged out by a security guard with your box of things. So just understand it's for other people to determine whether you are good at something or whether you are proficient at the job that you're being hired to do as a service. So you just have to do the best you can.